Good evening. So, quick market update. Haven't been able to stream this, so I'm just going to have to upload this as a video later. Plan was to look at all the alts on the Fs on the watch list, which is finally where I've got up to. It might be mid-year before I finally get around to finishing all my annual updates. But yeah, I just thought I'd have a quick look at the market overall to start with. So Bitcoin, Ether, the crypto market cap charts and the majors, but I'll be super quick about it. But just mainly just to get a sense of like whether alts are going to bounce. And obviously because people are interested in Bitcoin. So we've got this consolidation. We're bounded by this daily demand to the lows. We could take a wick through that, but that's kind of where we're at, and we don't really want to be breaking. A significant break below here will then create a whole wealth of supply unless it bounces really hard. So that's kind of the do or die zone from the way I see it. More recently, so we had the bounce taking out some of the lows last week, just down here. The week before last now, time flies. Then, I had two possible short entries, which got, the first one got very little reaction and didn't even come back to test the daily demand that I wanted at this cross. Before moving up, we did get a better reaction off the next zone, but by then it had made daily demand, so then pushed to break all-time high. And obviously the bias is still long anyway, so shorts remain risky regardless. But I like to look at zones where I might expect a reaction just for scalps, and most of my entries are scalps, not for holding. Today I was looking, so my last update, I was looking for a bounce on this weekly zone, and obviously it can bounce anywhere from the top down to the bottom, and there were a few zones inside it, so my alert went, but the bounce came as the highest level, I guess. I was ideally looking for us to take out Thursday low and go into the 12-hour demand or back into that daily below, and then there's also an hourly right near the bottom there. But as I say, we just got that bounce off the top. It's possible we might end up with something similar to this week of the 13th, where we get very little retracement on Tuesday, Wednesday, and we do have FOMC tomorrow, so just need to see what happens through here. I have put another alert in on my low time frame chart. Just in here, there's a 15-minute demand, just looking for that higher low. However, we now have hit this daily supply. There's a few things that sort of lacked confluence as well, which made life a little bit more difficult. When I look at the BTC career chart, so again, that had a couple of equal lows and it didn't quite take those out. So again, would have been nice if we'd taken those out and gone into the 2-week demand here. CME, again, I was looking at the weekly zone and I wanted a bounce on this 4-day inside it. So we got very, very close to there, but again, not quite to the level I wanted. We've also now left a CME gap that's a little bit higher in this daily supply above. So on that basis, I've put, so again, like I say, just considering scalps at this point, and then we see what zones break as and when. Bias remains up while we're above the big daily demand that I talked about below, and then this weekly intra-range demand. So we're more confident of longs overall. However, taking out this low off daily supply is also a possibility. So just see if we get the reaction for the higher low here, but else I'm still looking at those zones below. I have put an alert just taking out the highs from the weekend. So there's two possibilities, and I'll show you on the lower time frame chart. So yeah, this is Bitcoin on the lower time frame. So that's that 15-minute level that I wanted there. Then potentially look to take out these two wicks from, where is it, Sunday and Friday, for a possible swing failure into this hourly supply here, and that will coincide with filling the gap. And filling the gap doesn't have to mean it's going to reject, but it can be a possible point of rejection, and because given it coincides with those equal highs, it's worth watching there for a swing failure. And then similarly on Friday, I was looking for a swing fail into this 30-minute supply up here. It was a fairly high risk trade, but we did ended up getting the swing failure, but it was the swing failure of the Thursday high rather than taking out the ultimate high. And it is possible now, you know, that we're not going to go back and take out these highs. Like if the top has been put in with the swing fail of the top of the range, we may not go back. So going back to the original chart, it's possible if that's the overall high now that we're now going to go back down and take out the low of the range, which could mean down taking out this daily demand. So like I say, I'm still sort of indecisive either way on this, like until we flip a weekly, or at least a 3-day or a weekly supply. I'm not going to be bearish, but you know, just playing within the range for the moment. So yeah, that's pretty much it on Bitcoin. Just to summarize for Bitcoin, yeah, looking at possible swing fails over this high here, or over the Saturday high, the Sunday high, I think that is. Or again, looking again for longs on further dips down into these zones inside the weekly. And yeah, the low time frame if we bounce on this 15-minute here. So yeah, that's Bitcoin. US dollar dominance, it's obviously just pretty much doing the same in reverse there. Like it didn't create a weekly, so a lot of the alts created 3-week supplies, and this just managed to close above. It would have had to close below this level. Zoom in a bit. Would have had to close below, what's that, 3.96 to create the 3-week supply, so it didn't do that. So I actually need to delete that level. Nor do we have a weekly supply, but we do still have this 5-day, and again, it's just within the range, so it's all these are poor and weak supply and demand, but then we're using them to try and gauge which direction we might go. We took out the local high and we took out the local lows, but we haven't taken out the extreme high and low of the range yet to have, so I'll just mark those in, to have a better sense of if we're doing a range breakout in one direction or the other. So we come up deep into this 5-day supply, and there's a daily inside there, and so while we are moving up, the bigger picture, I'm still hoping for this zone to get tested. In the meantime, and again, like I say, so in reverse of Bitcoin, we do have a daily demand in here. So it is possible, you know, that Bitcoin rejects that daily supply and this bounces off the daily demand, and then we just need to see what happens from there. Bitcoin, as we know, has already hit that daily supply, whereas this hasn't. So it's possible we still go higher into that daily supply, into those zones that I was looking for shorts on Bitcoin. What else? Okay, so the main other things I wanted to look at were, go back to the watch list. Total, so I had a quick look at these earlier, so just to see if we created any 3-week supplies or demands on these. So total 3 is still looking much the same as Bitcoin. It's still holding this 3-week demand, and also already had a new weekly on the lower time frame. It's also got the same daily supply as Bitcoin and has also popped down into the daily demand. So again, still holding a weekly zone, still bounded by the same daily that Bitcoin has. And a bit of gap on this to the 3-month or the yearly if we do drop. Total 2. So the only thing I will say is that I guess these are looking slightly distributive. I can't speak today. And you know, so we can see the same here. You know, that we had a fairly extended consolidation, as we know, on Bitcoin here, and this is not dissimilar to that, nor dissimilar to some of the consolidations that we had at the 2021 high. So we do need to be a little bit careful when we're playing around right at resistance, because this can still reject. Total 2 does have an annuals come off today off this annual level, so we've got annual demand there, and then we've got a 3 months just inside, a bit lower. Again, didn't make 3-week supply. Did already have a 5-day, and it's trying to reject off there, and has now got the daily. So we're going to get a 4-day close in a few hours time. So this daily is going to be a 4-day soon, or it's now a 2-day. It's going to be a 4-day pretty soon. So again, I'm not overly confident. Let me see if total has that as well. No, total won't make the 4-day, but yeah, this doesn't necessarily bode well for Ether. So this is the total market cap excluding Ether. Oh, sorry, excluding BTC, therefore including Ether, and Ether we'll get to, but that has fairly significant supply on it now. Total 3, Again, still holding 3-week demand, now has a new 2-day supply, which will be a 4-day supply shortly. So again, starting to look slightly more bearish on these, unless we get a pump in the next few hours and it negates the 4-day supply. And then others, obviously we've had that bigger drop on alts. And I guess my problem is, so while I've had a lot of alts hit monthly demands, and I had 50 odd alerts go over the last few days, I'm not liking the look of this very much. So it didn't create a 3-week supply, but obviously it came pretty close to that. It's not going to create a monthly, and it already had a 2-week, which it was rejecting from. So it is very possible that this comes back down into these zones and or lower. Still very possible this is a double top, so we need to be a bit careful. Yeah, this does have a monthly demand in here, but we've seen that quite a few alts now have gone through the most in fact, most of the alts are completely different to this. Like, I think this is being held up by the very strong alts like SOL and XRP. But in fact, like, a lot of the alts are looking much more like they came up and then they are down here, rejecting or either bouncing off, or in some cases having gone through the monthly demand that was from earlier last year. So, or like even maybe November. Maybe they're like, yeah, I think structurally they're just quite different anyway, so it makes it, and they're actually much closer, weirdly, to the others' dominance chart. Is that weird? I don't know, I feel like that's weird. Anyway, yeah, this is looking slightly more ropey, so I would just be a bit careful about FOMOing into alts. And because it's very possible, yes, we're going to get bounces intraday, but it's very possible this is going to have a bigger correction. And I think DeFi was looking pretty much the same. And again, yeah, it has a 2-week supply, it's coming off. So I do expect it to take out the lows and most likely go back into this demand. I think this is slightly more conservative at the apex of the triangle, but the apexes of the triangle, as I've said before, are kind of risky, pretty risky long entries. As you can see here, we've had a similar triangle, we've gone straight back through it, so would not surprise me if this, particularly having not made a higher high, it's going to need to have a very quick bounce and make a higher high in order for this not to kind of play out as a distribution and come back down here or even lower. BTC dominance made a new 3-week demand, which I think it's come off today. So we had a 2-week demand that it hasn't tested, at least not on the higher time frames, no, and a 5-day inside that. So, and then today you can see the bounce actually from yesterday, where it's come off the top of that 3-week demand, and it's still in 3 weeks, what is that, a weekly supply. And I was looking at this 3-day level here as kind of the important level for me. We are still obviously very much in a bullish uptrend on this chart though. You know, we've come off 2-month demand down here, so there is no reason that it shouldn't take out this high and go up potentially to this 6-month supply up here. But in the shorter term, we need to just see what the reaction is here, and if that's at least going to give us some more time. Ether dominance and Ether BTC I'll get to, but it still looks absolutely hideous. We had this 3-month demand that we were hoping would bounce, but it's obviously coming right down deep inside it now. 2 months is quite a lot. We're still in a 5-day demand here, and there's still hope, but yeah, 2-month demand is quite a lot lower, the next zone that I would watch for. And it's now, you know, it's got monthly supply, it's got a new 3-week supply, so yeah, I'm not confident for Ether at the moment at all still. Others dominant, so yeah, this is what I'm going to say, this looks more like a lot of the alt charts, where we had this sort of big pump in December. They all made a monthly and 2 weekly demands like this, but quite a lot of them are now just, they had their first test in here in December, or more recently actually. It's very variable across the alts. They've had this first test, it hasn't managed to make a higher high, and now we're going deeper inside. So again, it's still possible this holds, but again, looking slightly ropey. And again, possibly breaking down this bigger picture triangle. Like, we've already had a few wicks through it, so it's obviously not respecting that anymore, and it's now dropped back through again. I think on the linear chart that's kind of a lot lower, so still I think there's a possibility here that we're going to go down and retest this low from June 2023 on alts, which probably isn't going to bode well for the alt charts. And total DeFi, again, pretty much the same thing. It's less of a triangle here, but again, drifting very much now down into this 3-month demand. Made a new monthly, had a bounce, but now deeper inside. So still at the point it's possible to make a higher low, but yeah, need just be a bit careful, because I still think, you know, this is very possibly this is going to fall off here and come back down to a proper demand. It's very, very low, and even others, where would the next zone be? So I mean, others did have the annual demand, but so what I would normally say is, so we've got an annual demand and we've bounced inside that here, and then really you want this to come up and make a higher high. You know, if that came up really strongly, made a higher high, then it means the zone is strong, and then you can buy retests. So in this case, you know, it did manage to break some local structure, but rejected this 2-month supply up here. Came down and again has had a couple of bounces off this level, trying to make that higher low in here. But on the most recent bout has been again unable to break through the new supply and unable to make a higher high. So my expectation is still to take out that low, and at this stage it's becoming very possible that it's going to take out this low as well, go deeper into this annual zone. So yeah, things to be careful of. And I suppose that's other dominance, and that doesn't necessarily mean that alts won't go up. It just means, it could just mean that Bitcoin goes up more. But also it just means, yeah, you should certainly be careful. And then given the others market cap chart has this rejection off the 2-week supply that I've talked about before, you know, we've got a bit of consolidation in here, but this is very, like, looking very possible that it's going to have a fall down into this monthly 3-weekly zone. So I've got an alert at the 3-week inside, but it's something I monitor more frequently anyway. So yeah, that's pretty much how the market's looking. So we're still, so overall, I guess we're still a bit indecisive on alts. You know, this could still be a consolidation for a break up. There isn't a significant breakdown, but we are starting to pull in some fairly major supply above, and it's not breaking back through it. So I would like to hope that this is gonna give some better entries, lower entries, but it will probably wreck the alt market quite a lot more if that's the case. Or maybe it's going to need at least Sol and XRP and the big guys to really start doing some significant retracements. And I'll get to looking at those now. Let's quick look at Ether first. So Ether did very much nail the entry that I gave in my last update here, but however has now made a 3-week supply and a 2-day supply above there, and I guess that 2 day is probably going to be a 4-day. So there's going to be a 4-day at the same level as the 3-week at the end of the day today, looking most likely. It's got multiple CME gaps. Obviously Ether's not as reliable at coming back for CME gaps. I've got 2 up there, as Bitcoin is, but there are CME gaps above to be aware of, at least the current week. So yes, well, we've had this bounce here. We would hope to get a move higher. So again, I have set a lower time frame entry or alert. So we've just hit the 4-hour demand, and I've set an alert for the 15-minute just inside it that's just below there. And then again, if we move up, it's just in a bit of a tough position. So Ether looking back at the chart actually can do some descending triangles and look quite bearish and then go up, but then it can also do significant drops from them. So let's have a look quickly. So here, sort of similar lower time frame pattern, and then falls off a cliff. Here, similar, but managed to then break up at the end of it. So it's, yeah, just slightly challenging. But this move was the ETF announcement, so arguably that's not necessarily going to repeat itself. Similarly here, we had a sort of triangle pattern. It did move up higher towards the end of it, but then dropped off afterwards. So yeah, I can't say Ether's looking particularly promising. You know, on the flip side, I guess here, like, you know, we did have a very big drop there, and then this consolidation, which did then break up at the end of it. So it's still challenging and could go either way. But if that's the case, again, as I said before, I probably really want Ether to tap down into this, at least into the weekly, if not into monthly or 2 weekly, around this level, these levels there, which are around the 61 fib. So those are kind of levels that I would prefer for long entries on Ether. And yeah, so you can see with the CME gaps, there's heaps of them. So we did eventually close, there was one here which did eventually get closed on that wick, but now it's left another one behind. But yeah, so Ether isn't that reliable on CME, but it's always worth considering. So I have, I'm not sure what this alert is. Okay, so I was looking at, I think previously, so let's go to the low time frame chart. So again, last weekend, I think I was looking when I wanted Bitcoin to take out the previous high or this high. I think I wanted Ether to do it at the same time. So, but again, Ether didn't quite get to my alert nor to the zone. So that's what is marked on the other chart. There's possibility of a rejection in the hourly zone here, and then now because we have the 3-week and potentially now we're going to have 4-day and the daily supply here, then it was worth watching a possible gap close and hence under 61 fib of just the most recent down move. Again, just possibility for a scalp, maybe a bigger move if we get a retracement up here. And then, like I say, it's just sort of a bit challenging on the higher time frame because we are in this enormous triangle which could potentially break out, and then we could find it, you know, if it gets through these first 2 levels, it could then start just blasting through back up to the high. But again, we'll cross that bridge if we come to it. For the moment, just looking at zones as and when they hit. So we're now in a 4-hour demand, so you can start looking for longs again here, but my alert and entry was for a bit low. I think just on this hourly or 15-minute demand. What was it? 15-minute demand inside the 4-hour, actually, so it probably is a little bit lower. So if we get a retest, just a slightly more conservative retest entry there. Although it's looking at this stage like it's taking its time and looking like it's struggling to get back down these past these zones. I didn't actually look to see if Bitcoin had a 4-day. Feel like it doesn't. No. Nor a 2-day. It might make a 2-day if it closes below this level today. So yeah, things to be a little bit wary of. So we just need to see, with Ether we really need to see, let me go back to the bigger chart, we need to see, you know, break out of this trend line, and I think people will start moving into it then, and I guess then my entries will start, so the 2 entries are there, and then, oops, there, and then around here. But if we do start breaking out of this triangle, then we could see some FOMO into longs. So yeah, for the moment, if you got the long on that low, then you're comfortable, and at least your stock can be at break even, and then we'll see what happens. And failing that, those zones below that I've talked about. Okay, so very quickly on the majors. So let's look at Ripple. So Ripple, as I've said previously, you know, it's made 3-week demand, it came off it, then it's made a 2-week demand, I think, since then, which hasn't been tested. So it's still got a 2-week demand in there. I was looking for the possibility of a swing fail of all-time high. You know, it did get some shorts off there. I think I was thinking about putting a possible short in for the 12-hour supply, but then didn't. I thought it was a little bit too early. It's had obviously one of the stronger bounces of alts from yesterday, from after the drop yesterday. So it's kind of interesting to see what happens here. Let me see if it's going to make. So at the moment it's in 2-day supply. A little bit higher in the next few hours, and we could see it make some demand. So I guess we'll have to see. And it does have a 4-hour demand here, so this is a possible long entry if you want to long Ripple at resistance, which I don't. Again, to reiterate what I've said before, Ripple is brilliant for triangle fake outs. So I've said this many times in the past, just be careful of Ripple doing this. So, and that's for the exact reason I haven't put any long entries there. I just think there are better things to trade than this. I mean, even if it goes to $10, like, I think it'll still take its time doing it, but that's up to you if you want to look for longs if we retest this 2 weekly zone. I mean, with that bounce, it's possible that we'll, you know, if it actually hit demand properly, we would get a really decent bounce off it. So that's up to you, and then my alerts remain much lower. There is a 3-day in there above the one I have, but I think I was looking at just lower because Ripple, when it does drop, just tends to run a few zones at least. But this was an interim bounce, and then it's got annual demand a bit lower. There's not really much new to report on that. So on the other majors, so we had EOS hit my alert but didn't quite hit the level of 5 days supply up here, has now made a 3-week supply. BCH also has made a 3-week supply, also didn't quite hit my alert. So I had, yeah, most of the majors I think actually didn't manage to make it back up into this 5-day supply. So I'll probably leave those alerts in case they revisit. A lot of the other alts did, so we managed to get some decent short entries in, which was good. And again, I haven't looked in detail at the lower zones on these charts. Again, I think I've said in my previous update that you should at least fib the zones. Like, I've left the alerts where I've just had them. So here's a 2-week demand on BCH, and on EOS I've got the 3-day, but then there's 2-week. They were very choppy, as was the main comment from previously. There's a 2-week and a 1 month in there underneath that 3-day. So they're just choppy, and it's not that clear of where they might, you know, where they could wick to if they're going to wick through. BCH also has a major risk of a lot of stops, or lots of stops under these zones. So and it slightly worries me, this lower high here, and again we're still in a much larger triangle. So it's, you know, BCH is very much do or die. Are we going to break out of this triangle, or are we going to roll through all these stops? I think it did, yeah. I do have an annual level actually in there, but I think it made it, yeah. So I only made it the annual demand. It closed very slightly above. Change my drawings back. So yeah, I guess this is still bullish in the bigger picture, but there is just, again, risks and things that are happening now, you know, after yet another lower high, yet another rejection of the large triangle. And I was always, like I pointed out previously, you know, that we've made here, for example, is pretty similar, that we've you know, had a consolidation, left some stops, had a big up move, and then down, and then retest, and then drop. And then here it's different because it has a different beginning, but we have, again, left lots of stops. We had an up move, retest. Are we going to see another drop here? The retest now is significantly higher than it was there. This was a very weak retest, only 50% fib, whereas this has probably gone to the 78 at least. So maybe this is stronger this time. Maybe this time is different, but I would like to see a test of this 6-month demand, really, or certainly at least these demands closer to price on BCH. Probably more detail than I wanted to give on that, but Litecoin similarly. So I think I said in the last update that I had an alert for daily supply here, but it went back up. It hadn't quite tested on this zone here, so it went back up a bit higher. Had made a 5-day demand, but again, just still through it in a consolidation. And I don't think it's made. There was no new weekly or anything like that in there. But yeah, it could still hold the 5-day demand here, or could still drop back to this 3-day for another up move, but I guess we'll see on that. EOS I've already talked about, Ripple I've already talked about. BNB, new 2-week supply, or I think wasn't new, maybe it was there the previous week, so you already had a 2-week supply and was rejected off. It didn't make the new 3-week, and actually had a 3-week demand, which I think I hadn't noticed here before. I might have been more bullish on it. So it's come fairly hard off that, but again, just straight back into daily supply and is rejecting again. Next zone down there is the 3-month, now a new 3-month zone. Obviously a large zone, and the trend line stops are slightly awkward. So I'll try to put in the alert, so there's a 3 month and then there's a 2 month just underneath. So initially just looking at those kinds of levels, and or here if it runs deeper inside. Looking slightly precarious actually coming off that trend line there now. Linker was more bullish on, similar to Sol, it had created an annual demand and we got a decent bounce off that. Unfortunately I just noticed it too late, so therefore didn't get the entry, I didn't chart it. Also made a weekly demand here, but I'd already alerted slightly more conservatively due to the range. Was hoping this would come up actually and give a rejection in this daily supply up here, but obviously it stopped just short of that. So again, just need to see a bit more follow up on that. And then ADA and POL, similar to the other majors that I'll get to, both made a new 3-week supply. So ADA, I had a little scalp long there, which just took off a daily demand, which just took it back up into 12-hour supply, but it's come back down deeper. But now has a 3-week supply. POL now has a 3-week supply. POL also hit an alert for a 2-week demand in there. But I've reset the alert because it was a little bit too early off the zone. So it bounced slightly higher. I don't think I'm overly bullish on the POL chart though, and particularly not now it's got this 3-week supply, but you never know, it might actually just give a bounce for potential retest. But both of these are just really choppy and messy as well. So I've talked about this on a lot of the other alts that you can see. We've got dailies, lots of dailies being rejected, but in the drop, which again makes it challenging. I mean, you can short any of those dailies as they're retested if you want to, but it comes a point when they might get stop hunted if we do get a bigger up move. So I guess we'll see. ADA's still holding that range and still holding daily demand at the bottom of that. So I feel like these just need a little bit more time consolidating to decide, you know, if they're going to drop, but if they're going to go up, then we need to see some more positive sideways consolidation, not just this sort of drift of death, which could end up falling off a cliff. Like I say, we can sort of see that cliff already happening on a couple of them, like POL. Then the final 4 majors, DOT, Atom, NEAR and SOL. So DOT, Atom and NEAR all also made 3-week supply, and I don't think any of them have tested as yet, but all of them, yeah, I'm just looking obviously a lot more bearish for now, but coming into support, so I guess we'll see. And again, that same chop in support that I've talked about through everything else, you know, the 2-week, the monthly, 5 days, various demands throughout. So I'm just finding these not very clear at the moment, which is why I've been more focused on the other alts. NEAR is the only one actually is in a monthly demand. But again, is that showing signs of just, you know, I had the initial alert for that monthly demand and it gave a move up to, you know, back up monthly supply. But again, monthly supply, stuck between monthly supply and monthly demand, now drifting deeper into monthly demand. So yeah, on that now, the next entry is just basically taking out the monthly demand, which we are seeing on some alts. But yeah, I probably need to look at these and do more analysis again and have a look at another look at the higher time frame on those. But I'm leaving the alerts as is for now. SOL, we had a weekly demand, and per my last update, we have daily demand inside where I alerted. I also added an alert now because we have a new 3-day supply above. It's aggressive, it may not reject there, but you can sort of see here we had similar, we created 3-day supply and then started rejecting off it. This will become more risky if we hit the weekly demand first, so just be aware of that. If you're like looking to take a short once it's hit weekly demand, that's going to be significantly more risky and may fail. And again, this is still, you know, similar to Ripple. It's a swing fail of the all-time high, second swing fail of it, which is not ideal in itself. So we need to see the reaction off this weekly demand, and then more specifically off the base of this up move to see if, you know, we're going to potentially get a breakdown from here. Or even, yeah, maybe not a breakdown, but maybe a bit more, you know, similar to this, a bit more of a sideways move and a new consolidation sort of sitting on top of that consolidation and on top of this yearly level. So that was the other thing, how this had also made a yearly demand, which was where we had a long entry on there in one of my previous updates. So that was a very nice long entry there, and it has played out the yearly demand. It's taken out the high. That's all it had to do to actually play out the yearly demand. So you would like to think it could go significantly higher, but it would have been nice if this had had a full breakout at that point, which it hasn't. So I did have I had an alert for the weekly supply here, just on the off chance we got a lower high, but I disclaimed it saying we were coming from yearly demand. And now then I had another aggressive short entry in 12-hour supply, which went right to the top but just about held. So that was another just an aggressive short in case we do get a massive drop from here. Always worth to get those in there if you can on the lower time frames. Bring your stop to break even and just leave it. But yeah, so we'll see what more develops on that. Okay, so that's 36 minutes, so that's a bit longer than I wanted to be on the market update, but there was quite a few things to look at. So like I say, I had on the alts, I had 50 alerts or more hit. Might just have a cigarette while have a sort of mini cigarette break. I had 50 odd alerts hit, and I kind of went through all of them, but a lot of them are very similar to what I've just shown you on the other majors, that they're just very, very choppy, and it's very hard to tell clear levels, and there are zones that have already been tested. There are many alts that are very, very bearish on the high time frame, coming from annual supply, 6-month supply and things like that, and can be expected to break the lows, but they're in monthly demand, so it becomes challenging. So I ran through yesterday just kind of looking for ones that are at least cleaner, and I posted this in my Telegram charts channel. And these were the ones that I was kind of just going, okay, they're worth it. I have no idea whether they're going to bounce. So like, for example, ZEREBRO, usual, like they're on clean, they're clean demands, and they don't have much supply. So usual had a daily supply right above, so which it has rejected today, but they're ones that are worth watching, because if they do get the bounce, and if the market does get a bounce, they do have space to, only daily supplies or 2-day supply in the case of ZEREBRO to go back up, but they've got some decent space to their major supplies. Whereas a lot of the others, as I said, on the majors have these sort of 3 weeks, and they're very, very close, so it's hard to know. So they could just blast through them, but I don't really like looking for longs straight into supply. So there were a couple that were strong for that reason. There was Deep, which I gave you in the updates last week, and gave you that entry. So if you watch my video on that, you would have seen that really, really nice entry there. However, now that's just run straight up into 2-day supply. So again, just needs some more time. DEXE was another one that I found that just looks strong compared to everything else. I mean, it's a difficult one because it does have, so it's got we're up in last point of resistance. So again, it's like, are we just shorting at resistance? There's a weekly level a little bit above, and then it's just wiki in there, but that's still a decent move if it can get through. But it becomes, when it's not that clear where it might reject, then it becomes sort of fairly tenuous to start longing. But I gave this as just a possibility to look for aggressive longs. It's also made an annual demand, so if we do get a bigger drop on this, then watch that annual demand in there, because that probably will get the push. But in the shorter term, so it made a weekly demand, which I think I had the alert on, and then it's made another 3-day. I think that's 3-day, yeah, so it's made a 3-day as of yesterday, but I moved the weekly alert up to the lower 3-day, so I'd like to see this drop through and stop hunt that 3-day, just because it's taken some highs there. But yeah, just looking at this 3-day weekly to see if we get that aggressive bounce, or even just for a scalp to go higher, else potentially looking at that annual level down there. Move was another one, similar to ZEREBRO and usual, again, and this was probably one of the best performers when I listened deep, that I'd alerted. So they had a 5-day demand, and then it come down and hit this daily at the base of it, so I had the alert for that, and then that was looking, and it had held, so that hit before, and then it had held despite the drop yesterday, so that was why that was potentially an interesting one. So it got a decent move up, but again, it's just hit 5-day supply in there. It's a second hit, it's a kind of a rounded retest, so again, just need to see some follow-up PA on this. It's looking like it's going to make a daily demand in there, so it's a possible long entry on that, on a retest there. which I will set an alert for. And you still need to be careful. I mean, this can still very easily be a bearish retest, but it doesn't hurt to watch the zones as they come in. Save that. Let's move. DAG was one of the ones that I was just keeping an eye on. So this was a bigger picture. Again, not something I particularly wanted along right now because we're in 3-month supply. Would like it if it managed to create a monthly demand in the next 3 days, then that would be great. But it was one I said to keep an eye on just because it's one of the US cryptos, and it is looking strong for a start, but also it only has MEXC shorts available, so there's going to be less sell pressure on this. It's in 3-month supply, however it has hit previously. So it was worth watching for a retest, so I've set an alert again on weekly demand down here. What else have we got? Okay, ZKL was another bigger picture possibility and just something to keep an eye on. Like, again, timing on this I have no idea. It has made a monthly demand, and it took a wick all the way through it, but close is looking like it's going to close back above. I'd like to see this close the month over 1597. I'd like to create a new monthly demand. But again, it's just something I said to keep an eye on for yesterday whilst having so many alts to look at longs, just because it's a nice consolidation. However, it is like a 7-month consolidation, so there is no reason this is not going to consolidate for another 2 years before it breaks out, but it's just worth watching. And again, was still retained some strength despite the drop yesterday, and is generally looking a bit different to other alts. So has created a daily demand in here. It's not the best one, so we're still consolidating through here. So again, it might still be too early. The more conservative entry was down on 3-day down here, which I've alerted. So you know, structurally we are still under this daily supply. So again, similar to how I described Bitcoin, you know, really wanted to break out of that and then buy the retest. That would be the safer entry. Otherwise, we're still just really in the range, but something that's worth watching in the bigger picture. Clicking the wrong buttons now. And then finally TOSHI, which I hadn't looked at for ages and then just suddenly noticed was like 100% up or something yesterday. So this has got, you know, so the safe entry is monthly demand down there, but it's obviously broken out of the all-time high. So you can look for a retest of that level. So it had a 4-hour here, so I think I said watch the 4-hour yesterday, so it was consolidating on top of that, so just keep an eye on this to see if you can get a bigger move off here. My alert on this is just more conservative, just down on the 3-day, and then there's a monthly below that. But again, it's just if it does start dropping, it then becomes sort of guesswork as to whether it's going to bounce on, you know, that 4-hour or this 8-hour, or, you know, so I tend to go the more conservative, and then just highlight it, so if people want to keep an eye on it and see if they're going to get a more aggressive entry, then that's fine. So yeah, you can watch this consolidation through this 4-hour, or if it, you know, holds the all-time high breakout level. Maybe check that on other exchanges. I don't know how accurate this crypto.com exchange, or not exchange, but is this an amalgamated data set? So there might be a cleaner level, but that's something to keep an eye on. But anyway, yeah, so those were the alts that I wanted to watch for various reasons, and none of them were immediate buys or anything like that particularly. I mean, Deep had already bounced by the time I posted, but it was just like watch the lower time frames to see what you get. And yeah, so then next thing to look at was the Fs, and the point of this video, which is now obviously a lot longer than I expect it to be, but I will cut it down into YouTube shorts later for you. So there aren't many Fs anyway, so I hopefully should be able to go through pretty quickly. FARTCOIN, actually, I made a separate layout of FARTCOIN. So FARTCOIN I also talked about in the channel earlier, so I'd said I had this alert on weekly demand, which I said in my last analysis, but there was something about this that reminded me of PopCat, and I didn't do that comparison back then. But I did have a look at it today just to see. So we've got, comparing here, we've got the weekly on PopCat, which you can see is actually reasonably similar to just this top section on FARTCOIN, but on a much lower time frame. and you can see that sort of running down, same as this is running down. And in fact, both of them are quite similar sort of retest levels, retesting the start of this consolidation. But then on the lower time frame, let me put this on the 12-hour on PopCat. I think this is kind of what I was saying, that again, this just slow grind up, tried to fall off, and then a final push. So again, slow grind up, slightly different, and then, you know, a fall off, and then the final push. And this is more of a distribution on PopCat, but and it's slightly more blow off top on FARTCOIN. Oh, sorry, not even blow off top, but blow off top to some extent, and then now consolidating. It's not a massive sell off. But yeah, so I'm less surprised that this weekly level hasn't held, and that was the risk at that point. My cigarette keeps going up. But yeah, just be aware, obviously, then. So, you know, if this does follow the same as PopCat, what you're looking at is the possibility of a short. So I haven't actually put the alert on yet, but this is, you know, potentially still a relatively risky short, but potential short entry on that daily or around the daily or 12-hour supply in there would be sort of similar to what PopCat did, but you would want to see it come up, you know, quite slowly, similar to PopCat. And PopCat ended up with a weekly supply, or a 2-weekly supply actually, so it flipped these zones. So maybe this would be better if it comes a little bit lower first, and then potentially flips a weekly supply at the same time. But yeah, just be conscious of this, yes, that while it's got weekly demand, while it's still bounded again by this daily or even this 12-hour, you know, in this consolidation after the last move up, that, you know, if it doesn't hold pretty soon now, then we could see a retest and a bigger drop down into the zones below. So yeah, that's something to just be aware of on FARTCOIN. FB was one of the particularly ugly ones. I think I didn't even set any alerts on this, so like if you watch my previous videos, yeah, I don't want to waste alerts, you know, setting them up here on the 2-week. I mean, yes, it's crypto, so it could go up there in one day if it wanted to, but yeah, it's too choppy in between. So there's plenty that look like this, and there's plenty of actually nice and pretty easy shorts that you can take on daily 2-day. So in this case, you know, as a 2-day supply, it's rejected just short of that, but you know, the daily 2-day supplies that you can just take easy shorts off because they really have no bottom. I think those are most of the XC coins. Well, that's looking fairly ugly. So yeah, so this one, we had a 3-month supply, or is that a new, let me just check, it's a new 3-month supply. So FET, yeah, so FET had a 3-month supply already, or it's around, it's rejected off it now. So it made a new 3-month supply at the end of the year, and it's rejected off it this month. So I'm absolutely not bullish on this until at least we get down into this monthly demand down here. So while we might get a bounce on, you know, the daily there, and there's a 4 or 5 day below it, they might give you a bounce, but with this 3-day supply and then the new monthly supply as well, it's probably also got a 3-week, yeah, so it's also got a 3-week in there. So actually my alert there at the moment was still in that 5-day above, and I might move that down. So I think this is more possibility of a more aggressive short on that, because we have, excuse me, 3-week supply in there, 2-week just above, so the 2-week's been tested. So this is going to be the 3-week, like that. So I'm just going to set an alert for the 3-week. And then yeah, so these are a bit difficult still because they have been, I've said that, you know, when I was going through the A's, B's, C's and D's, that they're difficult because they are testing lower time frames. So in fact, the 5-day, the 4-day have been sort of invaluable on these, and you can see the 5-day and the 4-day, and we're going to have a new 4-day on this today. Not sure what that orange level is. Doesn't look relevant. Well, so it actually probably is relevant to previous all-time high. Yeah, let's probably put that back. I don't find these levels overly relevant though for trading. I mean, I suppose it does try and use it roughly as support, but then for me that would be that daily. So yeah, like I say, these are challenging. Let me just delete that alert off there. these are challenging because they have had multiple tests throughout. So it's hard to know, you know, is it going to reject on the most bearish option, you know, reject on this 4-day if it comes only here, or is it going to go up into the 3-week? You know, some cases, are they going to run through the 3-week? You know, that we have seen a couple of them just run through because they haven't properly tested the zone up here, like in this case. So I'm kind of mixed as to what I'm doing, but having said that, this is just coming off 3-month and monthly supply, I think it's worth having a slightly more aggressive alert than that 5-day in there. And then, yeah, like I say, looking for the longs down here. FIDA. Okay, another one that's now broken support. So I did these charts a couple of days ago, so we're seeing some zones now having been broken. And we're also going to start seeing some new monthly supplies on things as well, which I think, again, I haven't put on, so this is potentially or very likely to have a monthly supply at this level. But again, this is something that's coming off yearly supply, it's coming off a 3-month inside a yearly supply, it's now rejected off a 2-week. It's rejected off the 2-week there, and I think I put the alert for the 3-week supply up here. But whether something like this is even going to get that far when it's now got a new weekly below. So again, it's got that chop. So I'm still leaving the alerts to sort of spread around a bit so that we get a mix of hits. So that if the market's more bearish, we get some of the more bearish, more aggressive ones. And if the market sort of suddenly turns to a bigger bounce, then we get the bigger zones. So if something like this, for example, might now come down into this 3-week zone before it gets back up there, it's very likely, and thus I would want, you know, if it's bouncing off a 3-week demand, I wouldn't really want to have a too aggressive short entry. So this, long alert 3-week demand and short alert 3-week supply. Fill, I think I did have an alert go on this yesterday, but I reset it. So this did have an alert for a 5-day and then 2-week and 1 month, so it's kind of bounced just above that level, so I've reset the alert and also just a little bit lower here. I didn't put any short alert on this. Again, it already rejected off 5-day supply up here, it's already rejected off 5-day supply up here. This now will have actually made a 3-week, and I'd say it actually hasn't quite made a 3-week. Yeah, it sort of closed exactly on the level, so it really didn't quite make a 3-week supply there. So again, another sort of more challenging situation that it could just hold here. You know, it's still in one of the larger consolidations. It could still hold the mid-range and then move up from here, or it could just break down at this point. But we'll see. So the alert 2-week and 1 month demand there, just see what we get. FIO. Okay, so this is coming off a yearly supply at the high, but it's hitting a 6-month demand. So I think I've seen a few of these actually in the D's and the F's. I think a few of them had a 6-month demand, so I have alerted that, and it hasn't quite hit there yet, but that's something to watch. Obviously a big zone, so it can go deeper inside if it wants, but initially you're looking for that reaction immediately off the level. And then hopefully if this got a good reaction, I would expect it to get through some immediate supply, and there is a bit of a gap to the 5-day up there. And I think that 2-week might not have been tested as well, so I think I've just alerted for the 5-day or 2-week supply a little bit higher, but with the disclaimer on something like this, if it is coming off 6-month demand, if it wants to, it can again just run from here. Fire, something that's looking significantly uglier. Again, so this actually was one of the few when I was doing the F that actually had a positive day that day. So I did set an alert for breaking the trend line, which went off, but obviously I said be wary because it's still got 3-day supply above anyway, but obviously by that point the market has now just started dropping anyway, so that's kind of moot alert now. I think I've left the alert on there just in case it comes back up and breaks, because it's, again, this is something that, you know, if and when it is ready to move, it's going to move pretty fast through all this supply. And as you can see in the reverse here, you know, it had a lot of demand and it just moved straight through all of that because it was so choppy. So it's similar to this. But again, where the bottom of this is, who knows? So we need to just kind of monitor and watch trend lines. So yeah, that's just a trend line alert for a possible long as and when it breaks. And monthly supply a lot higher. FLM, another one that's looking pretty nasty. Came off annual supply, there's an annual supply up there, there's a new annual supply, and then the 6-month that it's rejected for the short alerts up there that I've had previously. I've had no long alerts on this because there's nowhere I want to long it. I guess there is a tiny daily demand there that could get picked up, and you know, still in the bigger 2 week, but yeah, this is not something I want to look for longs on at the moment in the slightest. And I've got an alert here, and I think that's, yeah, 4 day, then 2 week, 3 week supply, but that's also going to be there. Let me see if it actually, yeah, so even that, you know, it created the yearly, actually it didn't quite create a yearly there, to be fair. It was a yearly level, but it hasn't quite created yearly supply, but I think it did have the 6 month, well, again, sort of closed very, very slightly below, so this is a bit tenuous on the supply in there, but it does have the 3 week, 2 week, which is certainly worth watching in conjunction with those other levels. FLOK, that's rather annoyingly just missed an alert I had up there, or I don't think I put it in after, I think that was in there before. I had an alert that I think I'm pretty sure I said this was a fairly high risk one off the 12-hour demand here, so it's not looking like it's wanting to hold at the moment, so yeah, just leave that one alone, and then 3 day supply, if it does come back and take out that high, that's a possibility of a short. FLOKI, so this is one with a new annual demand, which my line has gone. So let's just show you the annual. So this has got a new annual demand, so again, worth watching that level. Sorry, fly flew in my face. So I've got an alert for that level. I'm not sure if there's actually anything. Okay, so yeah, there's no low time frame demand at that level, so that makes it a bit challenging. But I think I've said, like, if we can get a swing fail, yeah, so you look for a swing failure here, so just taking out some of these wicks, and see if we're just going to hold the base of this range. But it is an annual level, so worth watching. We've had seen some really decent moves off annual levels before. Does now have a 3 week supply, but again, because it's coming into an annual demand, I haven't alerted that. But that would be your sort of risk area for shorts. I'm not going to put that across there. And then, yeah, so the initial is looking at that annual, and then potentially, obviously, be careful of that because it can go much, much deeper inside the zone if it wants, and in fact can go all the way to the bottom if it wants. That's a big zone, but then the next area would be this 3 month, and a fairly significant drop to that, so certainly don't be staying in that kind of trade if you don't see the bounce. So flow, and again, another one in just that sideways consolidation, coming off 3 months supply. I expect it to take out the low. You know, it's made a higher low and has now made a lower high, so it's just in a triangle. And again, just with these, just so many of these, just got to wait for them to break. Got to bounce off 3 week demand here, and now we've got to bounce off monthly demand there. So again, just need to see if this is going to hold. And yeah, so a lot of these that have hit are just going to be early days. You know, they need some time to consolidate. You know, it's still a decent drop, similar to here. Could still drop lower, could still drop out of the bottom of the triangle if it wants to, and take out all-time low. But they just need at least a few days, some time to build some sort of a demand before FOMOing in. So be a little bit careful. I think that I haven't set, again, you know, didn't set a short alert on that just due to monthly demand, because so what I'm going to have to look back on some of these. If this just drops through monthly demand, then I'm quite comfortable shorting 3 week supply. But if this holds now, then we could get that break to the upside. So I don't want to be overly aggressive, particularly because it's tested on the lower time frames as well. Just have a bit of a sip of water. Okay, that's flow, FLR. This is one of the ones that's a little bit stronger. That alert hasn't actually hit yet. 3 day demand. Okay, it's a retest of the 3 day demand. I think I was thinking, yeah, I suppose this is a little bit trying to look for something bullish, but again, it could still consolidate through here. It could still have a second test in here. I'm just going to move that alert down a little bit because it's probably a little bit high. This could still consolidate through here. You know, it's coming off a 2 week supply. it's got 2 week demand at the low. So, you know, again, you know, it's just hit and miss. Either a brush, yeah, either we consolidate through here and then make a break, or it comes full retrace for the break. But it's just obviously clearly in a sideways range box. But this is a decent, you know, it's a strong, decent up move. So it's possible we get that aggressive entry, and it's, you know, it's holding despite a lot of the rest of the market falling. So I guess we'll see. Flux. So, God, this must be on the other chart. Yeah. Okay, so Flux. So you can see on this chart that, to be fair, on this chart, you know, we've kind of bounced off the top of wicks here, but really I would want this zone tested in the bigger picture when I look at this. But again, you know, could still, it's that corrective thing, you know, it could just be making a large triangle, or we could be ending for the zigzag correction, and it could go either way. So on the lower time frame, so we do have a 6 monthly demand on this, but it's already, yeah, so it's already tested on the previous 6 month candle, so this wick has already tested it, and we've gone up higher, and then we did have a monthly demand on this, so we rejected monthly supply there, a nice short. We did have a monthly demand on this, which has had a very small bounce, and then it's now just dropped back through that. So again, could pick up support here on the 6 months, so you can keep an eye on this, but again, my preference would be for it to drop lower inside the 6 month, come back up to the start of the up move. But then again, you know, just 6 month demand makes it more promising, but, you know, still coming off monthly supply and still really in the overall bigger downtrend. Fourth. Another one trapped between under supply, so again, monthly supply here that it's hit once and rejected a second time now. So again, that larger sideways range that we're seeing on so many things. 6 month demand down here, so I've alerted the 6 month demand, obviously can dip deeper inside, but, you know, keep an eye on it from the level. And then I've alerted the 5 day supply there. 5 day, there's a 4 day, and then there's a 5 day above, and now obviously we're seeing dips a bit deeper into, so we're in 2 day demand at the moment. So second multiple test on 2 day demand, so yeah, I would probably expect this to go lower, might get a bounce up to there first, might get a bounce up to here. Again, the alert's just higher, that doesn't mean it won't reject lower. But yeah, watch the 6 month zone when that gets down there. FOXY looks like it's about to die, so the last point of survival on FOXY. So yeah, I haven't alerted this, or I think I just thought that was too, you know, like, these zones are fine if they make a higher high, but if they're coming off supply and if there's no demand to the left here that's holding this whole thing up, then I'm generally not that confident of them. But you can watch it, it is at support, and then I've got an alert for a 3 week supply, possible short if it retests up back up there. FTN, oh god, yeah, with this chart I have no idea what's going on with this. Yeah, I think FTN, yeah, that's just, even on Bybits, it's a complete mess. Oh, you know, I mean, with this you could just go and put some, you never know, you might get it, throw another massive wick down, maybe you can put some entries throughout the 2-3 zone and hope to catch a wick. Excuse me, more water. FTT I thought was looking okay the other day, but I was also said, you know, that's what's got a few more lines on it. I also said I wanted it to create a daily demand, and it kind of closed just above it, but that's not a solid daily demand, so it's going to take some of those levels out. Yeah, I kind of said disclaimed it with, like, I'm kind of loath to call any longs on FTT because of the whole FTX debacle, but then obviously it does still go up when it wants to. Don't really understand why it's still being traded, but anyway, it is on 3 month demand, and then is tested monthly inside, which is why, again, it was sort of something that was worth watching. And this is before the drop, with the major drop of everything else that had already come down into this zone. But yeah, it's obviously now is kind of dropping back again. So it's on monthly demand or 3 monthly demand, so you can kind of watch it from here, but then I reset the alert for the 2 month demand a bit deeper inside. And again, just based on similar structural things that I've said before, that, you know, we've had this sort of big up move, we've retraced the whole thing, and now we're doing this, but we haven't managed to break this high. So then I probably expect that low to get taken out, and then it's possible if we bounce here that then we could get a bigger move, but I guess we'll see. Assuming this is going to remain in an overall uptrend, whereas it's FTT, so I think it probably won't. But yeah, so I wouldn't necessarily be overconfident that this is going to break out and make new highs, because yeah, it's FTT. Fuel. Another kind of weird chart, because MEXC has this big gap on it, but I think all the other charts only have this section, so I leave that in there, because if it does go up there, I've seen those zones that act as resistance before. There's obviously one that's looking pretty ugly. I'm not sure what fuel is. Like, I keep thinking of T fuel when I look at this, which is the theta fuel, but I don't know if this is, because it's gas for Neo. I feel like fuel's linked to, is it ether? No, it can't be ether. Is it ether? I don't know. I feel like it's linked to something. When it's gas, no, gas is linked to ether, isn't it? I have no idea. I remember I used to know these things back in 2018, but it's been a long while since I've traded some of these things, and now they kind of reappear on futures. So yeah, this made a 3-week supply, 2-week inside it, and then a 5-day, 4-day just below. So 4-day, then a 3-week supply. So yeah, around that area I'd be looking for shorts, failing that up there. If it gets there is another matter, you know, it's another one that's now just started to make daily supply and reject off it. So you may find, you know, could be one of the ones that you could just look for local scalp shorts. Like I say, these are probably higher probability than a lot of other things, or certainly in a lot of the longs. You know, the longs, you're getting this choppy mess that doesn't really go very far. But, you know, if you could get in something that's just broken support that's similar to this, you know, if it doesn't have a bottom, if it doesn't have any history, then potentially this could just keep going. Fun was one of the ones that hit a major zone, so this did hit yearly demand there. Is this the first test? Okay, no, so it's already gone into the yearly, so it's the second test of the yearly. I don't love it up here. It is coming off 6 months supply. It may even be coming off an annual. No, it's coming off 6 months supply at the high, which isn't ideal. It does have this annual demand, and then it has made this new monthly. So I think I had the more aggressive alerts for here when we hit the 3-week, 2-week, and then I just reset it, similar to one of the ones I showed earlier, just in case it was going to dip deeper into the zone. So it's come back into the 2-week monthly zone. So this is something that's this is potentially worth watching, actually, because so it's got a 2-day, new 2-day supply here. So again, it's going to potentially need some time to get through here, but at least then it's got space, like, because it has fallen quite a lot. It's got the 6-month level there to be concerned with, and the fact it's coming from a 6-month supply overall. But if we are just going to get more sideways ranging, if this does hold, at least it's got space to the 5-day supply up here, which is the first one I've got alerted. And then, you know, if the market does go stronger, maybe it'll run through some of those zones. Let me see if it doesn't check, it doesn't have it. So it's got no 3-week supply, it's got a 2-week up here. So the 5 days obviously a bit more aggressive. But at least it has space up there, so worth watching. This belongs in the shorter term if we are going to get a turnaround. This one had a few nice scalps on it, actually. I think I was like, yeah, slightly more wary of this one. So 3-week supply, and it obviously took a wick through it. I don't know if it took a wick when... No, so the wick created the 3-week. So we got a short off the 3-day supply up here. Then came back down into daily demand here. And then now has made a 3-week supply. So I think I was hoping, I think maybe when I set that daily alert, I could have come off the new weekly supply there. But now has rejected off this 3-week or sorry, it's created this 3 week and actually rejected there before the 3 week had confirmed. So I think it's probably worth putting another possible short on that 3 week. I don't know, I feel like I may not have done this previously because I think there's not much on the low time frame in here. I think it's just, oh, there's a 4 hour in there. And I think it's worth having. We'll see what the 3 week. See Bitcoin dropping a little bit out of the corner of my eye. So yeah, I think it's worth having an alert there for the 3 week supply now. We prefer this to hit after this makes a lower low, if it's going to make a lower low. But yeah, I think when we had a decent move off this, so it was worth having a long for the retest of the daily demand. But a decent move there, but obviously it hasn't broken this high, so this one becomes then more risky and has only had a small bounce off it. And then it's obviously looking like it's drifting back down again. Might come back down into this 4 hour in here. So that's worth watching that 4 hour in case we just take out these lows. I actually has swing failed those lows off that test. But yeah, worth an eye on this 4 hour, but it's kind of a fairly risky trade now to look for longs on this, particularly because there's no support to the left. FWOG. I've seen a few people try longing this yesterday, and I wasn't really sure why, because for me it just hasn't got. So we've got a new 3 week supply above there. It's got a 2 week demand and some stuff below. 2 week demand, weekly demand, and then a 5 day. So I think I've alerted just, oops, move my cross the right way up. It's my OCD side of me. I think, yeah, there was a clean 4 day demand. So that's kind of where I put the alert and where I would start looking for longs. Excuse me. And then obviously weekly, so anywhere from around here, but it hasn't quite hit that level. So I think people were longing this yesterday, and then I suppose it could, you know, it can front run me. That's a possibility. But I would like to see this drop a little bit lower and actually be properly in demand. And then, yeah, there was a 2 day supply in there. And I think when I set it, I think it was just on this candle. So unfortunately, it hasn't come back. Why do I have my crosses? Am I doing that without noticing? But yeah, so if we do get a move up into here, then I'd be looking for a short back down into here. But like I say, there is a 3 week and 2 week supply above now. So this could still push higher, but that would be the aggressive short entry if we get a test up into there, hopefully for a move down into here. Just see what Bitcoin's doing. It hasn't moved very far. I can just see red, but I'm looking very low time frame. Ether's not looking great. FXX, the final one. So another one that's coming off annual supply. I swear I deleted these zones yesterday, but put them back again. So annual supply has a 3 month, I think, inside it that didn't quite get tested there. But yeah, so it's coming off annual supply. There are no longs on this for me until we get back down into the monthly demand. So still monthly demand remains high risk because it's coming from that annual supply. So that's what I put in the alert. And then possible short entry. 5 day supply. There's a 4 day that got rejected slightly below. So possible short entry if we come back up there, and the long entry here. And again, just like this is my sort of indecision on these sorts of things, that, you know, we're coming from an annual, we've made an annual supply and we rejected it, and then we've got monthly demand. You know, it's possible this picks up to move higher into annual supply, but it's also equally possible that the annual supply breaks out and makes a lower low. So just need to see a little bit more on that one. Anyway, that's me done. That's all the Fs and the market update, 1 hour and 15, which is not too bad for the amount I've covered. Hope that's useful. Let me know if you have any questions in chat. Hopefully at some stage I'll actually be able to start to stream, because at the moment I've got computer issues which are causing problems with streaming, so I'm having to record videos instead. But yeah, I hope that's useful. Have a good evening, and let me know if you have any questions. Oh, and like and subscribe.